Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Pursuing Profit with Principles. I'm your host, Regina Bergman. Glad to have you all here today, and I have a very special guest for us today. So I have a question for you, though, before I introduce him. Have you ever thought, boy, I wish I knew this person. I really have this important project that I would love to get their opinion on, love to talk to them about, but I don't know them and we don't travel in the same circles and I don't think I'll ever get to meet him. Well, my guest today is just the man who can make that introduction for you. He is a networking concierge. He's the author and podcast host of The Guy Who Knows a Guy, Michael Whitehouse. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you here. Your story is I find so interesting, and I love the work that you're doing because so many of us, we fall into that boat of, boy, if we could only meet this person or find the right people in our lives to grow our business or whatever. There are other times that we need to meet other people, right? Not just for business.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens so often that if you don't have connections, life is much harder. And
Yeah.
and when you're going through that, saying, we don't travel in the same circles, I can't meet them. That's not a fact. That's a limiting belief. You do travel in the same circles. We're 6 degrees from everyone in the world, and you're probably
Isn't
2 or
that
3
true?
degrees from everyone you need to meet. So there's probably someone who knows the people you need to know.
Exactly.
So the first step is deciding I can find those people and then finding them.
And then finding them. Awesome. Awesome. And we've heard for years, it's not what you know, it's who you know,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, when you talk about that 6 degrees, I think about LinkedIn connections.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at who you're connected to, who's connected to, that really bears out that 6 degrees, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's it's just a matter of deciding, one of the things I teach people is you become a connector when you decide to be a connector. One of the stories I share is that shortly after moving to Groton here, when I didn't know anybody, I went to a networking event and I knew maybe 20 people in the whole county and no one in the room. And so the first person I met happened to be a realtor. Second person, I don't remember, that I'm important to the story. Third person I met, I asked them, because I got in the habit of asking this question, who are you here to meet? What are you hoping to get out of this event? And they said, well, Michael, I'm really hoping to meet more realtors. I said, realtors, you say? Do you know that one over there? And they said, no, I don't. I was like, well, you're about to. And I made that introduction. Now, I could have said, who am I? I just moved here a month ago. I don't know anybody.
Right.
I don't know anyone in the room. I don't know anyone in the area. So I'm just going to make more connections myself before I start, passing myself off as some kind of connector. But I didn't. And because I started offering those connections, I started getting the connections. And
Yes.
it's all about that mindset, just asking, because you never know. And chances are, if you know 20 people, you know someone who can help the person you're talking to.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's so true. You have to have that mindset first. You have to make that decision that I'm going to help this person, help that person by connecting them with someone that I might know or someone that person might know that could help them. And when you do, those opportunities come up daily, don't they, to make those connections
Yes.
once you've made that decision.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about being open to it. That's all the law of attraction really is. It's not necessarily some, mythical force of the universe where your energy changes the vibrations to attract the vibration of the people you need. You see the people every day. It's like when I got my back in 2001, I got a silver Honda Civic, which was probably the most common car on the road at the time. But I didn't notice them before I bought one.
Right.
And then I bought one, and then I saw them everywhere because I was looking
everywhere.
Exactly. If you're not looking for people you can connect with, if you're not looking for opportunities, you don't see them. And then once you open your eyes to it, they're everywhere, all over the place. Opportunities to connect, opportunities to grow your business, opportunities to find the person you need, whatever it is, it's there once you're open to it. And that's all the law of attraction is, deciding I'm going to find those opportunities. It always amazes me. I'll be talking to some of my friends, who I've known for years and years, who are struggling to make money, to get jobs, to keep a job, to pay their bills. And and they'll be talking to me and saying, yeah, it's so tough. The economy's so tough. It's not fair. It's, capitalism. We're late stage capitalism, and it's all going downhill. It's all falling apart right now. And it's not about what you know. It's about who you know. And I just don't have any connections. I'm like, excuse me? You don't have any connections? No, I don't know the people I need to know. You don't know anyone who might possibly be able to connect you to the people you need? They're like, nope.
Nope.
Huh. Well, that's a surprise to me. But they're talking to the guy who knows a guy.
Exactly.
But they're so buried in their negative beliefs. And when I started, I was Don Quixote trying to save everybody and being like, and I was trying to push this, you can connect with people. You can get better opportunities. They're all out there. And I exhausted myself and made myself broke, literally, trying to convince everyone that they could do it and trying to coach everyone for free. And I finally set a rule that anyone in my personal circle, which is a pretty big circle, who comes to me and is ready to act and ready to accept advice, I'll happily share them with everyone. Because most of the things I can teach in 3 minutes. They're not advanced, complex concepts, but I can teach you in 3 minutes if they're ready to hear them. But if they're buried in their negative beliefs or they're down in a hole, it'll take 3 months to dig them out of the hole so I can give them 3 minutes of advice for them to act on. And I'll give them advice for free all day if they're ready to hear it. But I'm not going to do mindset work with someone and argue with them and go back and forth. Yeah. You got to pay me a lot for that. I'll give advice for free.
It's not worth it. It's not worth
mindset shifting, much more expensive.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up the mindset piece because that's so important. And that bit that you mentioned about the car and seeing your car everywhere. Mm-hmm. When we think about, our brain goes out and tries to find more of it for us.
Yeah.
Right? So if we're thinking those positive things and thinking about those connections, it's going to bring us more opportunities for those connections. If we're thinking like that person you mentioned, that I don't know anybody, well, no, you're not going to know anybody. Yeah. And it's so important that we do that mindset work. I actually have a course called Mindset Before Profitability. And as you know, I'm a profit acceleration coach. But let's get the mindset right first so that the work that we do in profitability pays off.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And mindset is key. So back in 2021, so my story of the current chapter of my business starts in 2020, like many people's does. And because I moved here to Groton, Connecticut in 2014, not knowing anybody. Having a vague business plan, but I knew I needed a network. So I just kind of went out and went to every event I could go to. And being a natural extrovert, I kept rocking it out until I found the people, which, was fun, not hard. So it was just, I was naturally blessed with that. And then learned that you actually don't need to be an extrovert and don't need to go to every event in town to network effectively. But I had not mastered the making money doing this thing. So I was doing a bunch of random, I sold cars, I sold printing, I sold insurance, I was publishing a community magazine, but I was 75% of my sales coming from networking because that's what I do. I'm the networking guy. And in 2020, obviously in-person networking became not an effective strategy for building my business anymore.
Yeah.
And it was that kick in the pants I needed to say, this is not where I'm meant to be. This is an okay opportunity. It will probably make me decent money at some point. And it was a great company. Great company to work with. And for someone who doesn't have a clear calling, great to work with them. But I realized, wait, I got something else I'm meant to be doing that isn't this. And I could tell because the universe just said this, done. And so I first did some coaching, realized I wasn't quite ready to be a full-time coach because I had a lot of instincts and talents, but not actually the coaching training. And then in 2021, that was my year to figure it out, to learn what I needed to know. And I took some courses on coaching to get kind of the basic strategies and tools. But the other way I learned was the way I do everything else. I talk to a lot of people and I leveraged my podcast, the Guy Who Knows a Guy podcast. And season 3 of that podcast was I started to meet more and more successful people, people making hundreds, hundreds of thousands, millions, tens of millions of dollars every year. And I talk to them like they're really smart, but they're not necessarily smarter than me. They're just doing something different than I'm doing.
Right.
What are they doing that I'm not? Well, let's bring them on my podcast and ask them and find out. And over again, with all these different stories and different variations, in almost every story, there was a moment of mindset shift. There was a moment where they changed how they thought and who they were. And that's when they
Right.
went from struggling to successful. And there were different ways they did it. And some had more adversity and others had less adversity. But it was always some kind of mindset shift, which is crucial in the story when they're able to take it off. And I realized this is great. This is great. I have the answer. And it's the answer that nobody will understand until they've done it.
Yeah.
Because if you're
that
stuck,
shift is different for everyone, right?
Yeah. If you're stuck making $35,000 a year and can barely pay the rent, as your rent just got increased by 40%, then and I tell you, you need to shift your mindset. You're like, I'm going to shift your face because it doesn't make any sense. Like that
Right.
sounds like something that someone with money would say to assuage their own conscience that they're winning a game that everyone else is losing.
Right.
But it's actually true. It's just really hard to explain how you explain to someone who hasn't experienced a mindset shift how to experience a mindset shift. That's like explaining color to a blind person. Fortunately, I'm not a mindset coach, so I leave that to better coaches to actually teach that. But for people who are on that brink where they're like, I know there's something, I'm ready to find out what it is. That's where I'm there, and I'll be like, well, here's a strategy. For example, you're looking for a job. Here's a strategy. Companies are full of humans, and some human can look at your resume and say, let's hire this person. If you can talk to that person and have a conversation with them, they can say, yes, let's give this person an interview, or yes, let's give this person a job. When you think of it as an automated process, you're never going to get a job that way. If you think of it as a human process, now the challenge is, how do I get onto a phone call, a Zoom call, a coffee meeting, an interview with this right person?
Right.
And then have a conversation where they say, yeah, you're pretty cool. Yeah, we'll give you a shot, or we'll give you an interview, or we'll try you out for 90 days or whatever. That can happen once you can talk to them like a person. And then people are like, well, how do I do that? And the answer is, how do you talk to any person? You reach out to them. You find their phone number, their email address. You call the corporate phone number and ask for them by name. And if you can't reach them, ask for someone by else. That's where you use other, nice cold calling strategies. Because you can get to talk to someone in the company, share your story with them, and what you're trying to do. Then they may say, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, you sound like a pretty cool person. I'd like to help you.
Right.
And even if that person's in accounting or the mailroom, they're still in the building.
They know someone to introduce you
they
to.
can start, things can start happening.
Yeah.
So without going too in depth into that strategy, but that's the nugget of it. Once you know that nugget, you can figure out the rest. That they're humans, talk to humans. Humans can do things for you.
Very good. So talk to me about what a network concierge does. We've talked around it. I mean, we've talked about it a little bit, but let's help folks really understand more about what you do, Michael.
Well, as soon as I understand it, I'll be happy to let you know. No, it's it came out of that year of exploration and talking to people smarter than myself. Because I was trying to be a coach. I was trying to build a coaching program or some kind of course or something like that. And finally, a very smart friend of mine, Phil Palucha, who does the Billionaires and Boxers podcast, he said to me, Michael, there are people who pay for introductions. And I said, what do you mean? He's like, well, if you introduce Bob to Susie, and through that connection, they put together $100 million real estate deal, do you think they'd be willing to give you some money for that? I said, yeah, they probably would. There's a lot of money on the table there. Like, yeah, they definitely would. And there's some people who that's their business. They get paid either contingency, a percentage, or they get paid a retainer and a contingency. And I'm like, well, that sounds crazy, but awesome.
Yeah.
So now I had this bit of knowledge that such people existed.
Right.
So I was then talking to more people because this is what I do. I talk to a lot of people and happened to mention to some of my other friends, like, I'm thinking about this thing and I'm not quite sure how it works, but I meet with lots of people all the time, making introductions is actually what I do for free all the time, just in a sort of
Right.
unfocused way. And another one of them said, well, I would love for you to do that for me, to find stages and opportunities to share my message. I said, well, okay. And so we talked a bit more, figured out, what the retainer would be. And the trick, and this is a trick for a lot of you entrepreneurs out there who aren't making any money yet, is the trick was he was someone for whom he had a lot more money than I did. So he was someone for whom what to me seemed like a fantastic retainer, to him seemed like money he could give it a try for a few months and see how it works. So the key thing is find people who have money to pay for what you want, or what you can do, who want what you can do. So to me, I'm already connecting. I'm already making introductions. He says, I'll give you this money to keep me in mind as you're going around making those introductions, and to particularly focus on me. And then he introduced me to some other people, because I think part of his thinking was, I want this to work and I want you to stick with it and not find something else. So let me introduce you to a few other clients so that this takes off, so you can keep helping me.
Very good. Now
So,
that's the kind of friend we all need to have, right?
yeah, a bit of enlightened self-interest. He introduced me to a few other people, and within, as November when I first talked to Phil and got the idea, December we had this conversation. By January, I basically had as many clients as I want to be carrying. So it took off pretty quick. But the concept is, with the networking concierge, is that clients hire me to introduce them to people they need to know. And it's leveraging the connections I'm already making, the introductions I'm already making,
Right.
and the conversations I'm already having. And then normally when I have a meeting, a couple of people who somehow stick in my mind, people I've talked to in the last 72 hours might be in my mind. I know that is just sort of random, whatever name happens to float to the top. So my clients are paying me to always be at the top, because a great way to stay top of mind for me is to pay me.
Yeah, I like that.
And so that way I'm always thinking about, who of my clients needs to meet this person, and who else needs to meet this person. And
Right.
and some people may hear that as like, well, doesn't that take the integrity out of it because you're being paid for this? And the answer is no, because I only work with people that I'd introduced to anyway. I just do it a lot more.
Right.
I've never had anyone be introduced to one of my clients and be like, why did you introduce me to them? It is usually, wow, that person was great, because I work for really great people who are well worth knowing. So, so it's great for everybody. And so it's a lot of just figuring out, how do I leverage the connections I'm already making, the travels I'm already doing, in a way that benefits the people I'm meeting, and can give me revenue, which means those introductions benefit someone else. So it's partly that I have some clients who pay me on retainer. Some it's an affiliate model. Some pay me per introduction, and so it's a mix of those different things.
Right.
It all comes together. But the key thing is, and I've heard this before and it didn't make sense, so I started doing it again. Once you're there, it's obvious. Was the figure out what your passion is, figure out what you're meant to do it, and you'll figure out how to get paid for it.
Yeah.
But I'm not necessarily meant to create courses. I'm not that organized. I don't have that organized mindset. I love to teach, but actually course building isn't my thing. Now, as my business gets bigger and I have more revenue and can use that to hire someone who can create courses, and then just say, okay, here's your outline of the 7 videos you need to record, go record them.
Yeah,
and
go
then
do
they
it.
build a course out of it, then I'll have a course. But it doesn't make sense for me to start with that, because that's not my strength. So you figure out what your strength is, you lean hard into that strength, and then say, what problem do I solve, and who can pay me to solve it for them?
Yes.
Start with those 2 things, and that's your business starts from there. And then, again, once you have money, you can use the money to hire the people who are good at what you're bad at. Don't try to get good at what you're bad at.
Right.
That way leaves frustration.
Leave your strengths.
Yeah.
Hire
Do what you're good at.
Everything else out. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Do what you're good at. Hire what you're bad at.
Yes. Well, for an extrovert like yourself, this seems like a dream job. Introverts might struggle a little bit with it, but for someone who's extroverted and really enjoys that interaction, seems like a dream job. So do you spend a certain amount of your time then in networking events to broaden your circle, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, so I do. I spend. I mean, I probably spend 3 hours a week in events, maybe 4 hours a week. I've had to get pickier about it because I've discovered that a networking event that was fun a year ago, I now am there and I'm like, why am I here? Because there's people network at different levels, and
Right.
so it's no longer valuable for me to
Yeah.
meet with you know the handyman from Newark who's looking
Right.
for a couple of handyman jobs.
Right. Right.
Because I basically, there's some networking events I go to where I need to basically train the people I'm networking with how to network at a higher level than just ask for the customer they want. But I do want to touch on a
Absolutely.
point you just made about how this is easy because I'm an extrovert. It's fun because I'm an extrovert.
There you
But,
go.
but I'm about to share something I have learned, which may blow your mind.
Okay.
Introverts are naturally better networkers than extroverts.
Interesting.
Now, the reason
Explain.
this sounds wrong is because when you think of networking, what do you think of when you think of networking? What's the image that
Yeah,
comes to
that
mind?
the image is yeah, a group of people, I mean before COVID, a group of
Yeah.
people standing around talking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, someone working the
Yeah.
room, shaking everyone's hands.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, hey, Michael, damn glad, nice to meet you, shaking hands and handing out
Right.
business cards. Right.
Right.
That's not where networking happens.
Yeah.
That's where the fun part happens. And so, since
Right.
a lot of introverts think of networking like that, they say, ugh.
Okay.
So that is the lottery ticket of networking. And if you do it enough, it works because if you meet enough people, you meet the right people. But you can
Right.
actually network very effectively if you start with an audience. If you don't know anyone at all, you need to go to some events, you got to meet some people.
Right.
But if you know 20, 30, 50, 100 people, which most business owners do because they have
Sure.
clients, they have coworkers, they have
Sure.
partners, you could be an effective networker without ever going to a networking event. And the key to that is talking to people, asking them, who can I connect you to?
Yes.
And then following up with that. Now, if you have a small group, then if I say, who could I connect you to? Then you may ask something, I don't know. This is when my network grows because you can now take that to the rest of your network and either ask individually or make a post on Facebook, send out a mass email, however you want to do it, and say, I have a contact, a friend, an associate, whatever, who is looking for someone to pave their driveway or an attorney or
Right.
accountants to partner with because they're a business attorney or whatever. Do you know one that would be good for you to introduce? You get an introduction to them, you meet with them, you learn about them, find out they're a good person, make that introduction, and then say, who can I introduce you to?
Exactly.
And if they are not a total bore, then they will, I should say jerk, bore is quite the right word. If they're not a jerk, they will reciprocate because you just said, who can I introduce you to? And it's funny when people who aren't really networkers, I do this for, who can I introduce you to? And then they'll sort of awkwardly be like, so who can I introduce you to? Like they're basically repeating my words back because they don't know how to do it, but they just
Right.
watch me do it. And it's awfully rude not to reciprocate. So if you need to meet people, then you can ask that. And if you're building your network in this way, then your ask could be, I want to meet the most well-connected people you know. Yeah, who can I introduce you to? Your
I
super
like that.
connectors.
The
So,
most well-connected person I
introduce
know.
me to the people who know the most people who I can go to solve the problems of the people in my
Yeah.
network who can make those introductions. And through them, you're going to work out. I have this concept I call the two-person networking event. You go to an average business after hours, you're going to meet on a good night 7 people. So I did a 1-to-1 with someone, and afterwards, she sent me a Facebook message, and she's like, it was great meeting you, and great to make a couple introductions. I got a challenge for you. I'll introduce you to 5 people I know who I think are a good fit for you if you'll introduce me to 5 people you know.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, challenge accepted. Let's go. That's easy and fun. So I did that, and of course, she introduced me to 6 people, which I could not let that stand. So I introduced her to 7 people. And then she introduced me to 2 more, so I introduced her to 1 more. So we each introduced each other
Love
to
it.
8 people.
Right.
which meant we got the same introduction results we would have gotten from a networking event, but it was more focused
Yes,
on
and more
people that were
trust.
actually chosen, not necessarily the
Yeah,
ideal connections, but people who,
yeah,
I think you should meet them. Which, if I'd gone to a networking event, it'd be just 8 people who seemed like in 5 minutes they were worth talking to,
right,
as opposed to someone saying, like, I think Michael needs to meet this person. Yeah, it'd be good.
right.
And so if you're an introvert, if you don't like going to these big events, if you don't like standing in the crowded rooms, yelling over the amplified musics, standing in line at the bar for a drink, all the less fun parts, if those aren't fun for you, then you can make 2-person networking events. Meet with
Love
the
it.
right people. And for anyone who even seems open to it, you can say that to them. You can say, hey,
Right.
tell you what, would you be interested in 2-person networking event? And they'd be like, a what? I'll introduce you to 5 people who I know, who I think would
Right.
be good for you to meet. And you introduce me to 5 people you know, who you think would be good to meet. And, just
I
make
love
email
that.
introductions, Facebook messengers, whatever. You do that regularly, and your next problem will be fitting all these one-to-ones in your calendar, which is
Yeah.
a time management
That,
prioritization challenge. But meeting people, you do not have to be an extrovert at all. And the reason I say introverts are better networkers is that there's two sides of the same coin. You get one or the other. So when you're dealt this card, it's flipped either to the extrovert loves to get out and meet more people side, or the organizer likes to create systems side. And I think this is because the extrovert, when given the opportunity to create some systems and spreadsheets, says, but I could go meet some more people.
yeah.
And the introvert's like, hey, there's an event tonight. No, I got a spreadsheet to work on. I gotta make this system. So for me, it's my random ADD brain that determines who I connect someone to, with the exception of my clients, of course.
Yeah.
But if I meet someone, it's like this random happenstance of chaos, who I think are going to be those good connections, which works well enough. But if you're organized, actually create a database or a spreadsheet or a CRM or something that's got everyone you meet and keywords and who they are and who they're looking for and all these different factors,
Right.
then you can be a networking machine.
Absolutely.
I met 800 people in 2021, and I could probably, off the top of my head, if I was like write down all the names, I could maybe think of like 40 names, 50.
Yeah.
Probably a few more.
So having something to keep it organized is,
Yeah.
That is such a golden nugget, Michael.
Mhm.
I hate to tell you this, we're out of time. I could go for another 30 minutes here, but it's a 30-minute show. What a golden nugget. I am going to put that last one to work myself, and give that a shot. I like that a lot. Michael, you and I talked before the show about that on your website, you do offer a free gift to folks. And so we have that scrolling across the
Yep, guyknowsaguy.com.
scrolling across there now. Yes. So you want to tell us very quickly about that?
Absolutely. So I wrote this book called The Guy Who Knows a Guy, which tells the story about how I came to Groton and became the guy who knows a guy. And if you go to the website, up at the top, there's a thing that says Get the Power 5 Networking Tips, which is a one-page PDF that summarizes the key points. You'll also get a PDF of the book. And then, because I realized that I have never once in my life read an entire ebook, so probably no one else is reading mine, I recorded my book into an MP3. So you will also get an MP3 of my book as read by the author. So if you enjoy my voice and you enjoy my advice, you'll probably enjoy the free reading of my book, which you can get at guyknowsaguy.com just by putting your name and email right up there at the top of the page.
Very good. Thank you so much. What a wonderful gift. I'm going to reach out for that myself. So, Michael, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show today and get to know you a little bit better. Folks, anybody can do it. As Michael's just told you, anybody can do this. Don't let your mindset hold you back. Don't let that fear. I mean, if you can, and the introverts in the group, I'm 50-50 on the Myers-Briggs scale, introvert extrovert. But the introverts, we like the one-on-one conversations, right? So pick one person and each find those 5 people that you can introduce each other to. If you're the extrovert, go bigger. Awesome. So, Michael, again, thank you so much for joining us today. And folks, we'll see you next Monday here on Pursuing Profit with Principles. Bye for now.
Hello, hello. Happy Monday again to you. This is LaChelle Adkins, also known as America's Supermom, and I am excited to be here today because we are going to talk about the superpower of consistency. Consistency is a word that we hear often when it comes to our business, managing relationships. The list can go on and on about the importance of being consistent. So that is going to be our topic for today. So I'm going to show you a little insight before we dive into our conversation. So we'll be right back after this message to talk further about the superpower of consistency. Gotta love the power of video. And as you can see, there's some adjustments that I need to make with the sizing and everything, but that is just a good example of how it is important to make sure that you have a lot of checks and balances in your method of being consistent so that you can notice these things. However, some things that interfere with our ability to be consistent is that we overanalyze ourselves. You know, we want things to be perfect before we even put them out there. And the important thing is thinking about what is the message? Who is it that you're trying to serve? Many times, the people that are in our audience are a lot of people that are striving to be better every day, but we all can really understand and resonate when things don't work out correctly. You publish a book and there's some grammatical errors, or you don't say things perfectly the first time you say it. You have to edit pictures and videos because of that very fact that we're not perfect. Right. So we have to remember the audience that we're serving and give ourselves some grace. So I want to talk about that first, because a lot of times people will say, it's just not right. I need to wait till it's perfect before I get started. And that is really the biggest obstacle that many of us have with doing anything. But we have to remember that start where you are. And that is not sometimes being knowledgeable about the best way to reach people, about how to say something so that they understand. There could be a number of things that could really interfere with the messages that we're trying to share with other people. But you're never going to know unless you get started and get out there and do something. So today we're talking about consistency. And so if you saw in the video that just breezed by you really quickly, there are a few components to consistency that really help us to make sure that we're able to perform at our optimal level. So it's clarity, it's time to reflect, excuse me, and it's also boundaries. Okay, so these three things are really areas that help us to be successful in what it is that we are striving to do. It never fails. Every time you get on a video, you get something in your throat. So, what are some things that interfere with that formula when it comes to consistency? Because this is the thing that really makes or break us with making sure that we, excuse me, stay with this routine. What are some ways that we can foster in some strategies that can help us on this task of being consistent? So the first thing, if you notice in the excuse me, quick video, was having a schedule. Now, me being a mother of 15 children and having 10 of them currently at home, schedule is the key to a lot of things getting done. It's the key to arriving wherever we need to arrive on a particular day. So this day being President's Day, we're really excited because our kids are out of school. So this is kind of like a break in that schedule, that hustle and bustle. However, the only way that a lot of things get done with a number of people is having a schedule, understanding where we have to be, when we have to be there, what do we need when we arrive. All these different things foster our ability to be successful. So when you think of a schedule, a lot of people think, it comes up kind of like with that same anxiety like a budget when it comes to spending money. But if you think about a schedule really being a way that you can prioritize the things that are important to you. Now, so for many people, when they think of priorities, they think of a to-do list. Okay, what are the things that I need to do for today? And they write them out, and that works perfectly for them, right? They just write out this list, and life is going to be great because they're going to accomplish these things on their list, right? The problem with that is that the list is not a situation to where everything else just remains constant while you're kind of trying to take care of your list. Life is happening. I could say I want to record 6 videos, right? If I'm a new mom and I'm a stay-home mom, I've got, a new baby, and the baby usually takes a nap at a certain time. So during this nap time, I'm going to be doing these videos or whatever the case is. And the baby doesn't take a nap, or the baby's upset, or something happens and the schedule is totally flipped around, right? So you have to really begin to determine, with that being the case, how is that going to work with your priorities, right? How is that going to work with that to-do list? Because if the to-do list doesn't happen at the time that you normally thought it would, how are you going to navigate through that, right? And so this is why it's important to schedule your priorities, because on that list, usually we have a wish list, okay? Every day we're thinking, oh, I'm going to get this done and this done and that done. But then as we dive a little deeper beneath the surface of the list, we see that there's a lot of fluff. There's a lot of things that may not be uh, all inclusive, being, the end all be all that we have to do today, right? So the schedule helps you think about your priorities. Now, for many people, they're like, I don't even know what to put on there. What really do I need to do when it comes to finding out if something is a priority or not? So if we're just taking any random person, okay, you got 24 hours in a day. The ideal optimum amount of sleep is 8 hours, which leaves us 16 hours in a day. So then what you think about is you've got 16 hours and you think about your roles that you have to play within that 16-hour time frame. So in my case, I'm a mother. I'm a podcast host. I'm a TV producer, author, a keynote speaker, right? I have different organizations that I'm a part of. I have a clubhouse room that I meet in daily. I'm in the middle of a challenge that has 5 other things that I have to do on a daily basis. Then I have to prepare meals for my family. My kids are out of school, so that's 3 meals today. I'm not exempt from lunch that they normally have at school. So now it's breakfast, lunch, and dinner and snacks in between because my kids are at home. I also have to factor in, what if they want to go somewhere? It's a day off. Is there some time that I can interact with them because they normally would be at school? I mean, the list goes on and on. So what you're going to do is think about these different roles and what are some things that you can delegate? What are some things that you have to do that are non-negotiable? And what time frame does that look like in that 16 hours? Now, if I'm at home and I'm working from home, there's housework possibly that I have to do. Maybe my kids are in extracurricular activities and there's errands that I have to run. Maybe I have to go to the store. I mean, you're factoring that in as well. So what I'm trying to get you to see by all these different scenarios is that all these different things need to factor sometime in that 16-hour day. So maybe if you're running errands for your kids, if you have errands for your business, you can do it all at one time. So you could say, hey, before lunch, I'm going to run out for about an hour. While I'm out, I'm going to run this errand, that errand. I'm going to come back and then go to my next thing that I'm doing for the day. So a schedule is very important when it comes to consistency because, every morning when I get up, that's going to be my time to read 10 pages a day or whatever that looks like for you. But a schedule is something that helps you to be consistent. Now, a schedule also helps to build habits. If you know that you're doing this every day before you go to bed or before you go to sleep, you're going to make sure you do A, B, or C. Then this is going to help you to form a habit that you're eventually not even going to have to think about. So we know that you have a morning routine where you're brushing your teeth, brushing your hair, showering, or whatever. But even though you're calculating that time in your day to do that specific task, you don't have to think about it when you're doing it. Usually we've been taking showers and baths for so long, we don't have to think about that whole process, really practicing and focusing on putting the soap on the washcloth and washing your face. You just do it. Same thing with brushing your teeth. You're not sitting there trying to focus on, your arm gestures and everything. You're just doing it, right? So this is what a schedule fosters for you. The next thing is boundaries, right? So we've got our priorities down. We've got the non-negotiables. I know that if nothing else fails for me with having a family, if I am going to save money and be more proactive with my budget, I'm going to be making 3 meals a day, right? So what does that look like? That's a non-negotiable. So there's certain boundaries that you set up around your time. So if I know that I'm making 3 meals a day, when do I make those 3 meals? Am I making them all at once so that I can warm them up different times during the day? Or am I actually preparing them fresh every time those 3 meals are served? And let's just say in that case, that's true. So if that's the case, then you know that if lunchtime is going to be at noon, then you're going to scale back your day around 11 so that you can have prep time in order to make that meal, that lunch for the day, for your family. Same thing for dinner. And so that is what we call a hard stop. So if you have meetings and you're talking to people about certain things that you're going to do, and you're like, hey, I have a hard stop at this time because you have other obligations. Now, you don't have to go into telling people what it is that you're doing, what you have planned, because that's really something that allows you to be empowered with your own schedule. And people will respect that. So it's not that we're being mean. It's not that we're not carving out time for other people. It's just that we know that at the end of the day, we cannot transfer our blame or accountability to somebody else. We have to learn to be accountable for our own actions. So if we know that we're not giving ourselves time to do this next role or task to the best of our ability, there's nobody that we can blame in that. And this is one of the lessons that I am continuing to learn with this challenge that I'm doing. I'm doing this challenge in our club. We call it hashtag 75 love, which is leading ourselves victoriously every day. But it is based off another challenge of doing 5 things every day. And if you miss one of those 5 things, then you have to start over. And the whole challenge runs for 75 days. And we are at day 50. And there's 5 things that I have to do every day. So it is taking a progress picture, drinking a gallon of water, reading 10 pages of a nonfiction book, following my own meal plan, whatever that looks like for me, with no cheat meals and no alcohol. And lastly, 2 45-minute workouts, one of them having to be outside every day. Now, that may not sound like a big deal. A lot of people are thinking, oh, I have a covered patio, I got a garage, I can do this. But no, it is being out in the extremities of weather. So whether it's snowing or raining or sleeting or windy, whatever that looks like, being out there in those elements. And this has really taught me the whole importance of, one, knowing what your priorities are, and 2, really establishing boundaries. Because at the end of the day, I have to examine, where am I at in my day? Did I get all 5 things done? Am I rushing at the end of the day to do some tasks that I could have done throughout the day? Am I trying to read, and am I trying to finish up my water and a workout all in like an hour time frame or 2 hours or whatever that looks like, because I didn't take that time and prioritize for it earlier in the day? Because at the end of the day, I can't blame anybody. It's all about what I was doing or was not doing, because those are the decisions that we're accountable for. So I have learned to really say, I can't delegate these 5 things. This is something that I have to do every day. And I have to look at myself at the end of the day and say, why didn't you do this? Aren't you more important than some of these things that you allowed to dwindle your time away? You could have easily cut back on a meeting or did something first, then had your meeting. So it's really taught me a lot with that. And then the last thing, when it comes to comes to consistency, is really having the time of reflection. I love the whole concept of understanding that we have to practice things, right? And I tell this to my kids, hey, just do it, practice along the way. But we have been told this whole thing about practice makes perfect. But it really should be perfect practice leads to success, right? Perfect practice. Now, that is a slight change of words, but what it really is meaning is if we're practicing the right things, that's going to lead to our success. I can practice over and over again a script that may not be right. Okay. So at the end of the day, I've practiced it, I've memorized it, but it may be a little off. You know, I'm maybe practicing some sales presentation and the information that I'm given is not correct. Right. So even though I have a flawless presentation, it's not perfect because at the end, the information that I'm sharing with the prospective client is not correct. Right. So we need to go back and really have this time to reflect. Is this working? Is what I'm doing correct? Right? Same thing. If I'm learning how to play baseball or tennis and I'm trying to pitch the ball or serve the ball or whatever the case is, whatever technique, if I'm practicing the technique incorrectly, that's going to affect the outcome of the game, of how I perform when it comes to me batting or serving or things like that. So I hope that makes sense for everybody. So when we have time to reflect, we really want to look at what is our form. Okay. Is the form correct? Right. So this is really a good example of thinking about creating a video. So you are so excited. You've got all your content. You've got your notes down. You know exactly when you're going to say what your call to action is, but you're not looking at the camera. Okay. You're looking down, you're looking to the left, to the right, and that eye contact, that connection with the audience is not there. So no matter how good the presentation is, you can miss out on engaging and really connecting with the viewer because you're not looking at the camera. Okay. So we really need to reflect and think about, is what I'm doing moving me in the right direction? Is it working? Right? What are some things that I could do better? So going back, checking your stuff, even like listening to your videos, we can repurpose a lot of things and we can use them for other types of content later on if we just simply took the time to reflect. We can make slides. We could do a webinar, right? We can create a PDF. We can create an email with the type of topics. So things like that, we really miss out a lot sometimes on certain ways to go forward and be consistent because we don't take that time to reflect. If you are doing something incorrectly, a lot of times it may be more laborious, right? So if I'm trying to serve in tennis and I'm not doing it right, and what I'm doing, the form is incorrect, and it's really could demotivate me. And so because I'm not having success hitting the ball or, doing whatever related to that sport, it might be a situation where I'm not doing something correctly, making the situation harder. And so when things are harder, that definitely can affect our ability to be consistent. So when you think about reflecting, this is the same thing with like your analytics. If you're posting on social media, but you're not being mindful of, am I reaching the right people? Is anybody responding? How can I get them more engaged? Do I need to post it in my stories as well as make it a post? Do I need to send it to different people that always view my work? Maybe there's somebody I recently connected to and I see that they're not as active as I am on this platform, or they don't have as many followers. So they may not see your feed because if they're only on that particular platform 1 or 2 days a week and you're posting every day, just think about the content that they are missing out on. So a lot of times we just kind of set things, we let them go on autopilot, which I believe that's important. We can have systems, which is another key. to really help us to be consistent in what it is that we do. Systems allow us to establish a routine and delegate certain things on a regular basis without us even have to think about it. So I mentioned that I'm a podcast host, so I have a calendar link for my podcast. Along with the calendar link, I have a email sequence that's set up automatically with the um, podcast link. So you schedule a time, there's a list of questions that I give you regarding what the topic is that we're going to discuss, about your headshot and bio and things of that nature. Then you get a reminder the day before the podcast. In addition to that, after the podcast, you get a thank you. Then you get, notifications throughout that journey of being in my network related to new podcasts or maybe being another guest or ways that I can help you in your business. Is there some specific areas that you want to collaborate on? I mean, it just is a sequence that I have set up one time. Now, yeah, it took me a lot of time to create each organic email, but it's set up on autopilot and I don't even have to think about it. Right. So there's just days when I'm thinking, man, what am I going to do today? And then I receive responses that have already been set up on autopilot, and people want to engage. They reach out to me, they want to schedule a call and things of that nature. And, it is just a nice little system that's set up regardless of how I'm feeling. Because we do have those days when we're not at our best, things are happening in the world. We can get distracted with some of the news that's in social media or in the world today, and we can forget about the importance of being consistent. So when we have these systems, they really allow things to keep going for us in the background. It's no different than your brain functioning and doing certain things when you're not even conscious of it. It is making your heart beat, it's flowing blood through your body, it's providing oxygen to different cells. They're duplicating and, doing whatever they do in your body without you even thinking about it. Right. So this is what we want to begin to foster in our business, because there's so many things that can be coming up. We get social media platforms that come up every day, or, there's new technology. I just recently became a brand ambassador in the metaverse. So that's a whole different world. Okay. Because it's like, hey, okay, I got to get on here, get an avatar. I'm trying to figure out how the avatar moves, and learning that platform can be a little crazy, right? But we have to think about systems being going on in the background so that you give yourself some time to be able to incorporate new things in your business, right? You can incorporate time for study, taking classes, doing what's necessary in order for you to be certified, or whatever you need to do in order to continue to evolve, to be better in your business and better in your personal life. And so we want to make sure that we have these systems that we can put on autopilot, so we have the ability to do those things, because at the end of the day, we only have 16 hours a day. So it's important for us to use that time to be effective and efficient in what it is that we have to do. So I want to remind you guys that, we can do a lot of different things as long as we work on what works for us, how making sure that we're clear on what it is that we want to establish. What system do we want to put in place? And what boundaries, because no one else can be an advocate for us. We have to learn to kind of do that for ourselves. So I want to thank you guys for watching today. And I would love your feedback on this topic when it comes to being consistent. Are there some factors that maybe I ignored, or some ways that you are allowed to be consistent based on some habits that you have instilled? Because I think it definitely is a situation where we can all learn from one another. We can all get insight to help us change and flip the script on things just one little way at a time, right? And this helps us to accomplish a lot of our goals. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I would love to hear your feedback. Feel free to reach out to me. I am just a click away, so to speak, on all social media platforms. You can just look for me as America's Supermom on any of those. I would love to connect with you. So in the meantime, remember to be consistent, and I want to thank you all for watching. And I will see you next week as we discuss following up with people. So have a great week. Be blessed and prosperous. See you next time. Bye for now.